How we doing today, boys and girls? This is Iron Wings 3187 coming at you with another episode of Storytime with Iron Wings. Still working on my washer and dryer. Unfortunately, the parts are backlogged due to it being a very old and outdated washer and dryer set. Almost a decade old, so I have to do second hand or private party purchases. So they're all on back order for a bit. So with this is my buck 110, and the last episode I did was my buck 55, and I promised you guys a little bit more story and explanation behind why I needed that buck 55 or why I got it. And this is kind of the context to that. As I said in the last episode, I've kind of moved away from this being a factual based and more down and dirty total review of this, and this is more of a personal series. So take what I say here with a grain of salt, and if you like this knife, how it looks, how you think I talk about it, go ahead and pick it up, and if you don't, it's whatever. So this buck 110 is actually the third or fourth that I have owned in my lifetime, doing no fault to the knife or the producers themselves. So the first buck 110 I talked about in my last episode, and it was actually the buck 110 50th anniversary, I think, with SV10 something, S30 steel, some fancier steel that has the BO3 or BOS stamp on it, and a brass emblem in the wood grip panel. And I got that when I first got stationed at Fort Campbell in Kentucky. When I first joined my permanent unit, I went to the PX and went looking for a knife because I was a truck driver. And as a truck driver, you're using ratchet straps a lot, you're opening crates, you're dealing with boxes. So a knife is just something you want to have on in case there's any issues. And I'm looking around the PX, they have a little shop that sells, your cheap Chinesium, mall ninja stuff, and I ordered enough of that from Bud K back in the day, so I never really bought from her. You had a dude who was selling a lot of cold steel shit, but I think that a cold steel tie-light stiletto assisted opening was a little bit inappropriate for carrying in uniform. That's more of a, mall ninja thing. Again, it's still durable. It's not a poor quality, don't get me wrong, but just kind of not a workman's knife to me. Like the Recon Tonto that they make. That's a great knife, and a lot of Army guys do carry those. So I went into the PX proper, looked in the sporting goods section, looked at the pistols they had and all this other crap. And in their sales bin there, they had a bunch of little knives. They had Buck Stockmans and all these other different types. So I look in the bottom row of this two-tier, like almost metal shopping basket they had for sales. And in there was this marked 50% off at like $40 because someone had ripped the package open to try and steal the knife. So I take it home with me that night, open it up, throw the sheath away because the top strap had already broken on it, and I carry this thing in my pocket for about 6 months to a year. And it's honestly one of my favorite pocket knives still to this day, even though I don't carry this anymore. And what happened to the first one was, from what I remember, I lent it to one of my friends to open up a couple of MRE crates, and I wasn't paying attention. He goes to hand it back to me and he drops it. The tip falls and it hits a rock in our little gravel motor pool, and it shears the tip clean off about a half an inch onto the blade. And at that point, I didn't think about sending it to Buck to get repaired or replaced. I just threw the thing away, and that was it. After that, I was in that mindset as a young adult where I already spent $40-50, which was a hefty sum for a private in the Army, on a pocket knife that got broken because someone else was careless or because I was not paying attention. So because of that, I didn't want to spend more money on a good knife and have it broken again, so I started buying cheap Chinesium blades, and I did that all through Bud K, and again, I said this in a previous video, I wish I kind of had all that money back that I spent on the mall ninja shit I did when I was in my 20s, because I probably spent close to 10 grand worth of my paychecks on these cheap Chinese blades. So yeah, this knife served me very well for 6 months to a year, I think, before the tip broke off, and I never bought another one because I just wasn't in the mindset of quality over quantity and risking someone else breaking it. Then I get out of the Army after my term of service is up. I am with my girlfriend, my fiance at this time, and going to college. I'm broke because I don't have a job. I'm living off of my post 9/11 stipend with her getting financial aid, and that's how we're making ends meet. And I asked her if she could go ahead and buy me a buck 110 for Christmas. I've already gone into the story previously, and I just couldn't wait. I was impatient, so I decided, you know what, I'm going to go and I'm going to buy one of these at our local Big Five because it's on sale, and I have an extra $50 to my name. So I go, I buy this. My girlfriend didn't realize I bought it and ordered me the buck. I went and bought this buck 110. I didn't realize she had ordered me the buck 55, and she didn't realize I had already bought myself the buck 110. And then a couple weeks later, I had gotten another buck 110 in the mail from my grandfather. So that's how I've come to own 3 or 4 of these knives, and while they are one of my favorite knife designs, I really don't carry it anymore. And the reason for that is just because the bulk of this thing. This is one of the most overbuilt pocket knives you can own. And it really does feel like you're carrying around like a lead bar in your pocket. That's because the massive brass handle. It's made out of Buck Standard 420 high carbon, and I really do like these. They are very fine knives. They do the job they're supposed to, and these really are the pinnacle of the working man's knife. These are just about as common as you can get. Everyone and their mother has owned either a Swiss Army knife or a buck 110, and they serve the purpose they're supposed to. With that story, there really isn't that much to say. It's similar to the buck 55 in that way that there isn't a lot to say about the buck 110 because this doesn't break any molds. This created the mold others sought to copy. To this day, nearly every company that makes knives, especially pocket knives, has some form of copy of the buck 110, be it Redhead from Cabela's, Frost Cutlery, Winchester. All these different knife producers or licensees have some form of buck 110 clone, and almost none of them meet this same quality standard as the buck 110. And I don't know what kind of voodoo magic or sacrificial works they do at Buck to get their knife quality so high with such a decent price for an American-made product. But honestly, do I need to say any more when it comes to the Buck 110? This is just a story time, really, because there's nothing I can say about the Buck 110 that will either sway you to buy one if you hate it, or hate it if you already like it. This is the American standard pocket knife. You know, it's just that ubiquitous. I mean, to this day, when people ask for a pocket knife, one of the most common phrases you will have asked of you is, do you have a buck knife? Do you have a knife? And there's a reason for that. So, you already probably have an opinion formed about this knife, so I don't know what to say. I mean, if you're going to buy it, buy it. You owe it to yourselves to buy this knife at least once in your life and own it, just because it is the standard of American pocket knives. This is the one that every knife owner, every collector across the United States is almost like by law mandated to own in their collection, even if they don't use it. So, with that, I think I'm probably going to go ahead and let you guys go because, like I said, there isn't a whole lot I can say about the Buck 110. It is just that much of a classic. So, with that, I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video of me discussing what little I could and more telling my story relating to this Buck 110. And just go ahead and hit the like and subscribe if you can. I hope you have an excellent day, and this is Iron Wings 3187 signing off.